we're going to start with Mario Cristobal because he said something very interesting after the game on Saturday night. But I want to take you back a couple of years. I want to take you back to the post-game press conference after the 2022 Florida State game. Remember, that game was 45-3 Florida State. Miami could not do anything. It was a sad game to watch for the Hurricanes. This is Mario after that game.
Trust me, no one feels this more than I do, but I hate it for our people. I hate it for our fans. I hate it for our players. We're in a building process, and we're laying a foundation and got to go to work, and it ain't fun. And days like this are really painful, you know, and there ain't no excuse, there ain't no sidestepping it or sugarcoating it. So that's why I came here. Got to go to work.
You see him hit that table, Ari?
I did.
That's a theme. Let's go to Mario after Saturday night's resounding win against Florida State. Smacking that table again. Do they own the state?
So I don't know if you read the column yet that I wrote about this that's on On3 right now, but this was my lead. So if you didn't, then we're on the same page, Andy. I used a different quote from that press conference to start off, but I think that that's a really nice way to look at it because, you know, after that game 2 years ago when they lost 45-3, Manny Navarro from The Athletic asked him about Florida State running up the score. And I'm sure you've seen this quote, but if you're listening, you might not have heard it. He said that, you know, basically it's Miami's job to stop Florida State, and it's Florida State's job to score. He doesn't care about that stuff, and that one day the shoe will be on the other foot, right? Yep. And when he said that, one day could have meant any point in time, right? That's not a specific amount of time, but one day turned out to be 2 years later. And the game was 36-14 on Saturday, but a meaningless touchdown at the end of the game for Florida State made the score look a little bit more respectable than the game actually was. And, you know, it's an interesting situation because now Miami is 4-0 against teams in the state. You know, obviously the two big ones were the blowout of Florida in the opener, and then, of course, what happened to Florida State then. And I think that there is a clear, identifiable growth within the program that Miami has had that, you know, is clear. Now, I don't know how much of the 4-0 stuff matters when the two teams you beat are having really rough years, but you live in that state. You know how much it matters to the recruits in South Florida that Miami has on the up and up. So I don't know, Andy, how far Miami's season's going to actually go this year. I do worry about their defense. I don't know that I think that they're a legitimate going to win the national championship team right now. If they won it all, it wouldn't be the most surprising thing in the world, but I think that that would be a pretty big long shot at the moment. But what I do know is that if you are looking at the year-over-year returns and growth of having Mario Cristobal as your coach, that being 8-0 right now and smacking Florida and Florida State is a really important, you know, metric to track that. Now, here's the other thing, too. I think that we can say without a shadow of a doubt that Mario Cristobal has been the most successful of the big three Florida programs at talent accumulation, right? Like Miami has collected players better than Florida and Florida State. Now, Florida State did it really well a few years ago in the portal and maybe did the best job any team has done in the portal during the portal era at all. But in terms of year-over-year consistent program roster building, Mario Cristobal is the best.
And Billy Napier has gotten a great quarterback and has gotten some good high school signees. He's not done as good a job out of the portal, with maybe the exception of Ricky Pearsall.
Yeah, and also, too, like, it's the lines at Miami. Like, they're not just recruiting sexy skill position players.
And that's what they're doing mostly out of high school. Yes. With some supplementation out of the portal. life does not always have room for a complete balanced meal. Like today, I've been very busy. I had to drop the kids off at school. I had to pick up a retainer for one of my kids. I had to get a workout in before the show because there's too much work to do after the show to do that. What are you going to do about breakfast? Well, I know what I'm going to do. I've got Huel. I've got the Black Edition chocolate flavor, 35 grams of protein, 400 calories. I know exactly what's in it, 27 vitamins and minerals. It's a complete balanced meal. So that's Huel, Huel. It is the world's #1 complete nutrition brand. Complete meal in seconds. Just grab, sip, and go. In fact, I am going to have my breakfast while Ari is pontificating on this next topic. Like when he's going on a long soliloquy, I will be drinking my breakfast. And it's going to be amazing. And it's going to be complete. And I'm going to be full. And I'm going to know exactly what I'm putting in my body. Huel makes it easy with nutrition that fits into your life. You can try it now with 15% off your order with the code STAPLES at Huel.com. That's Huel.com. Fuel up the easy way with Huel.
In the 2 recruiting cycles since Miami's 42-point loss to Florida State 2 years ago, the Hurricanes have signed a recruiting class out of high school that ranked number 8 in 2023 and number 5 in 2024. They're currently number 10. And also at the game, there were more than 50 recruits, Andy, more than 50, including 4-star cornerback Ben Hanks of Booker T. Washington. He's a Florida commit. 4-star linebacker TJ.
He's also a Florida legacy. Ben Hanks, his dad, played linebacker at Florida.
TJ Alford of Portland St. Lucie is an Ohio State commit. 4-star defensive lineman Jarquez Carter of Newberry High, also an Ohio State commit, and 3-star cornerback commit Shamar Arnox of Carrollton, Georgia High School. Like, he's a USC commit. They are like going to go on a flipping spree, I think. And they also got another commitment from a player that decommitted earlier in the month, and Malachi Toney out of Fort Lauderdale American Heritage, a school that I've actually visited, writing about Torrance Gibson. How's that for a blast in the past?
I remember Torrance Gibson. Heck yeah.
Yeah, I went there. And there was a former 49er player as the head coach at the time, and his name is escaping me at the moment. But,
I had ribs with Torrance Gibson at Mama Lucy's in Opelika after a 7-on-7 tournament.
You did?
Oh, yeah, when he was in high school.
Yeah, he was a nice guy. Yeah. And then if you go look at like Florida and Florida State, their classes are nothing right now. Like, it's just not comparable. Like Miami, I guess Florida State's 23, which isn't terrible, but it's not Florida State quality. And Florida is 33. And I think that part of the reason why is because Florida State's obviously having a really awful season, like truly awful.
And Florida, the recruits are waiting to see what happens with the coaching situation. Like they want some clarity on that.
That's the hardest part. It's like if a coach is on the hot seat, he can't recruit effectively, but then you hold the lack of recruiting against him because he's in a situation that he can't win in. So I feel for Billy Napier in that regard. But in terms of the word that he used in the post game, trajectory, whose trajectory are you buying of the 3 right now? Now that can change in the snap of a finger with the right hire, but like at the moment,
Matt's in the chat. Apparently doesn't watch games. Y'all, the state is down all schools, and UCF is better than all of them but Miami. Miami has no D. Matt doesn't watch games. Like UCF played Florida, and it wasn't really close. Florida won, and Florida's not that good. So, and UCF just fired their defensive coordinator, so really shouldn't be throwing stones at other teams' defenses. Also in the chat, give Alex Golesh some talent and see what he does on offense. No, it's kind of Alex Golesh's job to go get the talent, which is what Mario Cristobal has done. Now, this can change at the snap of a finger because we started this segment with Mario Cristobal 2 years ago lamenting a blowout loss to Florida State. So Mike Norvell was the king of the state then. He was the king of the state last year, and now he is presiding over a dumpster fire. So it can change that quickly. For Mario Cristobal, they lose Cam Ward after this year. They've got to make sure they have a quarterback either from the portal or one they've developed out of high school. You know, it might be Emory Williams, who they liked, and then he broke his arm against Florida State last year. But they've got to have that part figured out. But what I like that they have done, and this is what Mario did at Oregon too, is they have built from the inside out. If you can't block, you can't win. And they have brought in guys who can block. If you don't have a D-line that can reset the line of scrimmage, you can't win. And they have brought in those guys. And the other thing is that type of team construction will work when you play teams from the SEC and the Big Ten in the playoff.
Yeah. And I think what you said is a really good point, Andy, about, trajectory and program building. Like Florida State a year ago was undefeated and got screwed out of a playoff spot. Like Mario Cristobal is not making that message to brag that they won the game. Mario Cristobal knew that there were 50 recruits there. He knew a bunch of other recruits would be watching. I think that recruiting in Florida, especially in South Florida, is a very front runner situation, where kids from that area want Miami to be back before they take them seriously. And he knows that this isn't a 1-year proposition. Like he's not at Miami to create a good season. He's there to create a good program. And, I know that we came into the year worrying about his coaching chops in terms of his game day management, but so far this year it's been pretty good. And his team has gotten a lot better. And I think the focus of this program isn't just about being pretty good right now. It's about signing really good classes year over year, becoming a cool proposition to kids in Florida again, actually doing what every coach and his predecessors wanted to do, which is keeping top kids from Miami home. And that's how the U gets back. Like I think the U getting back is more complex than Texas getting back. Like Texas was always about just getting good again. But I think the U is back when everybody in South Florida is like rocking with the Hurricanes. And like people are like, I want to go there. Kids grow up dreaming of going there.
They haven't been cool
in 20 years.
During the lives of these guys who are recruits now.
And so I think that this season, though Miami fans are still enjoying it and living it, is about trying to see how far this team can go. But I think the season's goal, which was to show that this team can actually be good and not a laughingstock, has already been accomplished. Like Miami is already a team that's on the way up. And Mario Cristobal is a coach that you have to take seriously in the recruiting trail, which then I think will breed more talent, more dividends on that talent. And then maybe one day they won't need Cam Ward, or they won't need to rely on Cam Ward as much as they do this year, because their roster will be so excellent. Like that's the building process.
Well, but the thing is, they're good at getting guys out of the portal.
Yeah.
Like the guys they've chosen, like Cam Ward, Damian Martinez, the older Maui Noah brother who they got last year, with the younger Maui Noah brother signing out of high school. Like they've done a really good job selecting guys out of the portal to complement the guys they've gotten out of high school. Like that's the job now.
And they'll still do it. They'll still do that.
Yeah. That's part of
one day their roster will be
deal.
So good, Andy, that they're not going to be living and dying every single snap of every single game based on how good Cam Ward plays. That's my only point. They're still going to go get Cam Ward. I wasn't saying they're not going to try to go get him, but like how much of Miami's success this year is Cam Ward? And that percentage is probably too high because they're still building. But there's a lot of really good players in that state. And guess what? There's the number one thing that's also not talked about that much, but like Nick Saban is not there to go raid the state
to
anymore.
Go
now LSU
to take the best
Ohio
wide receiver out of state. Think about how many times he took the best wide receiver out of South Florida. Amari Cooper, Jerry Jeudy, Jalen Waddle.
There's a lot of them.
Or no, Jalen Waddle's from Texas. Sorry, he plays in South Florida now for the Dolphins. And of course Ohio State went and grabbed Jeremiah Smith out of Broward County.
And like
this
would
past
Jeremiah
year.
Smith have gone to Ohio State if Miami went 10-2 and 10-2 the previous 2 years? Maybe he still would have because he wanted to be developed by it. I don't know. But like he was thinking about Miami at the end there, right? You think about him a little bit more if they're actually proven to be on the right track, probably, and they are. And I think I wrote a story about this at The Athletic 2 or 3 years ago. But if you go actually crunch the numbers of how many top 100 players Nick Saban took from the state of Florida, not just South Florida, but the entire state, I think you could, like, with a straight face, attribute that the demise of the big three in Florida is directly his fault or his doing. Maybe that sounds dramatic, but
Kirby Smart's not helping either. Like Jalen Carter's from
Ohio State.
Yeah. So,
but I'm saying if if Alabama
Carson Beck's from Jacksonville.
I think he took like 15 or 16, 17 in a 4-year period, top 100 players. That's a lot of talent that's not playing in Florida. And then you add into what Ohio State and Georgia are taking, and then LSU and Texas and all the other. Like, there's a lot of talent leaving the state. There's enough talent in the state to make all 3 teams really good. But I think that there should always be one really good team out of the 3, right? If not 2. Yep. It shouldn't be they all stink, because that means that something's going wrong in recruiting. And Mario Cristobal, from what I can see, is the only coach right now that's actually doing the high school piece seriously enough to make them good. And whoever is coaching at Florida State, and it's been a criticism in the first column or the second column I wrote at On3 was about how Norvell can't just win in the portal. You might have a good season, but you can't build a program around that. You can't be transactional. Mario Cristobal is going to be transactional for 3 or 10% of it, and 90% of it's going to be foundational, rock solid Florida recruiting. And then watch. That's important.
Well, and meanwhile, I don't know if Billy Napier could save his job. It's going to be very hard. If he does, let's say by some miracle he does, he has to be more transactional. Like, he's got to be quicker and better in the portal, because that's where they've failed. So yeah, it's Mario Cristobal has balanced them both. He and Napier came in at exactly the same time, and he's ahead. Now, if Napier could beat Georgia and Texas in the next 2 weeks, we would change our minds on that. But that I don't know that that's going to happen. Miami, meanwhile, plays Duke this weekend. Duke pushed SMU to the brink, took them to overtime last week, could not beat them in overtime. But that's your upset watch. Miami's a 20.5-point favorite. I don't think Mario Cristobal cares about the spread as long as they get the W. But Miami has the cleanest path to 12-0 of any of the teams that are still undefeated right now. So we'll see what they can do. But that is it's a pretty definitive statement from him after that Florida State game. And now they can move their way to 9-0, 10-0, 11-0, 12-0, and then go to Charlotte.